Welcome to the podcast, Jessica. I'm so happy to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me. It's such a pleasure.
Yes, of course. I had such an incredible reading with you when you connected with my spirit guides, and I just thought you would be a perfect person to bring on and just kind of talk about your story. And maybe that's where we start. If you can share a little bit about how you got here.
Yeah, sort of like how I became a psychic medium.
Sure. Just wherever you want to start. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, I would love to share that with you. So, I actually never dreamed or imagined that was going to be my job, that this is what I was going to be doing. I actually never pictured myself doing anything besides being an elementary school teacher. It's all I ever really wanted to do.
Mhm.
And that's what I pursued in school and in university or college. Um,
Mhm.
and that was my trajectory. And it wasn't until I actually accomplished that goal and got into teaching that I started to question whether this was actually really right for me.
Mhm.
Um, and it was in that journey of, I really believe that it was my spirit guides who kind of led me back to what was really what I was meant to be doing. And so there was a series of events that really kind of led me to realizing that I really needed to be working with spirit guides and that I needed to be helping other people realize that they have an intuition too, and that they need to be connecting with it. And so for me, that looked like, the way that I say it is that like spirit guides, these, and I'm sure we'll get into what they are and what that means, but they really are there kind of working for you in the background all the time. And they're always giving us little hints of intuition, little intuitive downloads, little pebbles or little kind of whispers of, you're not on track or you need to move over and get back in alignment. And so for me, that looked like, first a gut feeling of maybe this isn't right for me. And then it looked like a really challenging classroom, right? And then it looked like a really challenging colleague the next year that I had to share a classroom with. And then it looked like a really, really tough boss, right? Or principal. And so every year there was just something that made it worse and worse and worse and made me question even more, why am I here? What am I doing?
Mhm.
And then on top of that, I was getting physical symptoms. I was getting sick every 3 weeks. Like you could mark it in your calendar that I was going to be so sick that I would be bedridden sick,
Mhm.
with some sort of flu or virus or whatever. And yes, that is part of the nature of the job and working with kids, but as consistently as I was getting
Mhm.
sick, maybe not.
Mhm. Yeah.
And there was definitely a lot of signs and a lot of things telling me, you know what, this isn't right for you. This doesn't feel good. I'd never been more stressed out in my entire life. And I was a good teacher. I will say that, I did get recognized for being good. I was given the more challenging classes because I was good in the classroom
Mm.
and I could
Mhm.
handle it. But it just didn't feel good. And so, in my maybe, I think it was either my third or my fourth year of teaching, just before winter break, I actually got into a car accident.
Mm.
I spun on some black ice and my car went spinning and slammed into a snowbank. And,
Wow.
the whole right side of my car, the door came off, the wheel came off, like I hit it hard.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
I think nobody else was injured, but I got myself a nice little concussion, just from just from all of the movement and motion. And so I was given a couple of weeks off of work, and in that time, it was just before winter break, so it was closer to a month off. And in that
Mhm.
time, I kind of, took a moment and realized, like, I was just relieved, like, oh my goodness, like I have a break.
Mhm.
This feels
Mhm.
good. Why does it feel so good to be off? Right.
Mm.
And I never really thought more of it other than like, thank God that happened. I really appreciate the time off. And then it was just about to go back to school at the end of the winter break, and my concussion was fine. It wasn't a huge concussion. And I had gone skiing with some friends about 2 days before we were supposed to go back to school. And I fell in such a weird way that my skis didn't unlock from my boots. So I went one way and my feet went the other, and I tore my knee so badly.
Mm. That sounds painful.
It was it was definitely not fun. And so, it's the day before I'm supposed to go back to work, and HR gives me a call. How are you doing? How are you healing from your concussion? Oh, cleared for the concussion, all good, but I'm on crutches now. And they went, hold on. You just had a concussion. Now you're in crutches. They're like, you're a liability. We can't have you on school grounds while there's still snow and ice on the ground. So we're giving you 6 months off to heal from all of your injuries, pretty much until there's no snow on the ground. It was January then. And here in Canada, we get snow up until May.
Yeah. So basically the summer.
Yeah. So until the summer, pretty much. So they said, like, you cannot come back. You're not coming back until, there's no more snow. So, and I took this as this big, like, okay, right? Like, and my husband looked at me and he said, well, you said you weren't sure if you wanted to be a teacher anymore. Now you have the time to figure out what you're going to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's exactly what I did. And I took the 6 months very seriously. And part of me was thinking, I know I don't want to be a teacher anymore. I realized that from having the time off that I was just so miserable. But I don't know what I want to do. And at the same time, I need to get this anxiety under control, right? Mm-hmm. I was so anxious. I was so nervous, so stressed out all the time. And so that's when I discovered meditation. I knew of it, but I never tried it, so to speak. And so I actually sought out a meditation circle. There was a woman who hosted meditation circles in her home. It was every week. That's nice. So she invited me to come to her house, and this was like a group of really spiritual, crunchy, kind of conscious women. They all homeschooled their kids, and they all, and they all meditated a lot, and they, it was a beautiful group of women. And so I started going to these sessions or these circles every week. And it was in those moments that I really felt like I was home for the first time. I never felt more like myself. I'd never felt such relief from my anxiety before. And I've never had such profound experiences as, and I highly recommend for anyone, if you've ever been to never been to a meditation circle, there's something about the power of in meditation with a group. Everybody's energy kind of feeds off everybody else's. It is the most magical experience.
I agree.
It's amazing. And I just wanted more of it. And so while I was in these circles, they talked a lot about things like past lives and all of these things I'd never heard about. And so while we were in these circles, I was telling the woman who ran them that I'm just trying to figure out like what to do. If I don't want to be a teacher, what do I do? She goes, well, why don't you ask your spirit guides? That's what they're for. I was like, my what?
Where are they?
Yeah. And so she described them to me, and she said, there's you don't just have to meditate in a circle with us. Like, there are apps, like, go online and start listening to these meditations. There are ones that help you connect with your intuition, that help you connect with your spirit guides. Go and do them. So she downloaded the app on my phone, and that's what I did. I went home, and I mean, I had nothing better to do. I could barely walk. So I would spend, hours a day just meditating with these apps and listening to these meditations to kind of try and connect to my spirit guides, just to get the answer. If I'm not going to be a teacher, what am I going to do? What am I supposed to be doing? And
so these meditations were specific for communicating with your spirit guides?
Yeah. There's a few, if you go on the app Insight Timer, if you just type in like spirit guide meditations, there are hundreds of them. There's so many. And I can even tell you the ones I used. It was by a woman called Pura Rasa.
Yes. I use that one.
Yeah. They're really, really good. And some of them were like an hour long. Like,
yes, they are.
Great. And you get into this really deep meditation. And then at the end, she kind of has you start communicating with your guides and start talking to them. And it took a few times, but eventually I got a sign. Like, they sent me a sign in my mind, and I thought, and I'll never forget this, because I remember going, really? This is the sign you're sending me?
And the signs were during the meditation, or it was like once
I would see an image of something in my mind. So I was asking my guides, if I'm not supposed to be a teacher, send me a sign that I'm not supposed to be a teacher anymore. Right.
And what did that sign look like?
I saw in my mind was a picture of a lion. And I went, what? What does that even mean? Like, what? So of course I start Googling, what does lion mean? And none of the messages made any sense. And I was like, what the heck? Why are you showing me a lion? I must have made that up. I must have imagined it.
Right.
2 days later, I went to go visit a friend. And as soon as I walked in the door, her little son, she's a 4-year-old son, he grabbed me by the hand. He's like, Jessica, I have to show you something. And he drags me up the stairs, and he points to a little figurine of a lion sitting on like the table there in the hallway. And I went, like, first of all, full body chills. And then I kind of said, and I said, oh, why did you want to show me that? And then he got all embarrassed, and he was like, I don't know. He didn't know why he was so compelled to show me
that
this.
Is so Weird. Yeah, chills for sure.
Right.
Wow.
And so when spirit gives you messages,
Mm-hmm.
like it like hits you in the face, right? Like it's like
Mm-hmm.
undeniable, right?
I
And
I
we was
agree.
dragged up the stairs and someone pointed it out to me, right? Like
Mm-hmm. That's
and this thing had no
amazing.
idea why. Yeah. So that one was really cool. And that was when it kind of started for me, like, oh, that thing I saw in my head, like that was really the sign. Like that was my guides trying to tell me, yes, you're not supposed to be a teacher.
Yeah.
Right. Now what? And so I kept going and going and I kept looking for new signs. And, they started sending me new pictures and I started seeing them. And, then you start building this relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it wasn't until a little bit later, I remember that I had months and months off. So I had a lot of time to be kind of diving into this stuff. But eventually I was still very much set on trying to heal my anxiety at the same time. And medication was never an option for me. I didn't feel that it was necessary. I didn't feel that it was a disorder. However, my husband was medicated for general anxiety disorder, and he really wanted to get off his meds. And so we kind of were on this journey together of like, how do we help our anxiety? Like, what do we do?
Mm-hmm.
And in these circles, I found a woman. She attended one of them. She was running a drum circle one day for the same group of women. So we went to her house, and she didn't advertise that she was a psychic medium. She advertised that she was an energy healer who helped people with depression and anxiety. And I
Mm-hmm.
felt really connected to her. So I decided to take my husband with me and go have a session with her, let her heal
Mm-hmm.
us, so to
Mm-hmm.
speak. And my
Mm-hmm.
husband was like, I'm not into this. He like, I don't know what this woo-woo stuff is. If you're making me go in that room, you are coming with me.
Okay. You're like, yep, I'll do it.
I was like,
Right.
sure, I'll sit
I
in
would
there
be
with you.
happy to.
So my husband went first, and she had him sitting on a massage table, and it was like Reiki or another kind of energy healing, right? So she
Mm-hmm.
had her hands over him, but as she's doing it, I'm sitting there on the floor, kind of enjoying the music and meditating, whatever. And she starts calling in all of these beautiful beings of light. And as she does, I see them come into the room. And I
Really?
see the colors that she's like spreading over my husband. I can see colors coming out of her hands. And
So this is with your eyes open. This is not with your eyes closed.
I can't remember. I could have
Okay.
it could have been a little bit of both. Um,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
because I was sitting in the room, it was dark, my eyes were
Yeah.
closed, enjoying the
Uh-huh.
music. I think it was a little bit of both.
Right. Right.
Like
Right.
I was,
Okay.
kind of just in and out of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But definitely the experience was very like out of body, like, oh my God, I'm seeing very clearly
Mm-hmm.
what she's calling in. So as soon as she was done with my husband, of course he felt really good afterwards. I told her, I was like, when you called in that being, like I saw this little purple thing and he came in, he looked like this. She goes, yeah, that's what they look like. And I'm like, wait, what?
That's amazing.
So I told her, so then I said, I need more of this. Can you mentor me? I need to learn how to do what you do. And she goes, I've never mentored anyone before. This is kind of something I've always had, but I'll try. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started going to her house every week, and we would sit together in meditation, and she would show me everything she knew about, doing this work, about connecting with spirit guides, connecting with loved ones. She
Wow.
taught me, a lot of the important stuff about like how to,
Mm-hmm.
create boundaries and, how to do it safely, all of the stuff that you probably need to do, or need to
Mm-hmm.
know for someone who does it professionally, like she
Mm-hmm.
did. And so and that was when my journey really took off. That was when,
Mm-hmm.
I learned how to connect with my grandparents. I had really clear messages from them.
Oh,
And
wow.
that was confirmed when I spoke to my parents and asked them, like, I saw this and I saw this from my great grandparent. Is that true? Is that what she looked like? And my parents would be like,
Mm.
yeah, that is. There's no way you could have known that. Right.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it was so beautiful. And then I learned to connect to my guides and get those answers. And, the answer really was that, if I could figure out how to connect to my intuition, then everybody can.
Mm-hmm.
Then that kind of became my mission. Yes, I love connecting
Wow.
with guides. I love doing it for other people. But in addition to that, I love helping people connect to their own intuition.
Oh,
And
wow.
that really set me on my journey to what I'm
That's
doing.
amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so many questions come up.
Yeah.
Um, but there's so much there. Okay. Okay. So those little signs, I feel for me, I feel like those little signs come real subtle. Like they start real subtle, right? And like they start like little whispers. And then I feel like they just keep getting louder and louder and louder until they become like this huge thing. Like, okay, you're going to listen to me one way or another.
Yeah.
Like I feel like it comes in with the bang. And I feel like there was a time in my life where I really felt lost and needed guidance, and I kept asking for signs and I kept asking for signs, and I kept thinking, I'm not getting any signs. I mean, this was years, literally years. I'm like, I'm not getting the signs. I probably already knew what I needed to do, but I needed somebody to tell me it was okay. And it really finally arrived as a big bang, and it was awful, and it was a really, it was a turning point in my life for sure, and now I know why it happened, but it just, that's how it felt for me. I felt like things just kept happening until finally it was like, okay, well, that's, if that's not a sign and I'm not going to take it, then I don't know what is. It just kept getting louder until this big life changing event happened to me and my sons. So so yeah, do you find that to be the case? Like it just keeps getting louder, or do you think that they just kind of go away and then they're like, oh, she's not going to listen?
No, it's 100% that they're pretty persistent.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so and that's exactly what it was for me, right? I had these little ones that I was ignoring and ignoring and ignoring until finally, I got
Your
physically
actions.
injured, and
Yeah.
rug pulled out from under me. You have no choice.
Hmm.
You're not going back to school for 6
Hmm.
months. Right. And
Wow.
they really knock you back onto your path. So the thing that is that, your guides, and it's actually a beautiful thing if you think of it this way, is that
Right.
whether you're listening or not, your guides have your back. They are going
Hmm.
to push you into alignment no matter what. The thing
Hmm.
is that if you're listening, right, the path can be a lot less rocky and bumpy. It can be a lot easier then they don't have to throw the boulders at you, right?
Hmm.
You can
Hmm.
pick up on those little whispers at first and then not have to kind of wait for the life changing, life altering.
Yeah. That makes so much sense. But when you're getting those small messages, it feels like, oh, but if I do this, it's such a huge thing. It's such a big change. But then if you wait for the big bang, then you realize, oh no, I should have just done it back then.
Yeah, yeah. And that's sort of where, a lot of us don't trust our intuition in a lot of
Hmm.
ways. We really, we get the message, and people do. You do get those feelings. You know what the message is. You know
Hmm.
what you're supposed to do. But then you let kind of societal expectations come in.
Hmm.
You
Yeah.
let, what would other people say or think come in? What about, finances and all of those other
Yeah.
things? You let all of the kind of logical things kind of come
Hmm.
and cloud your judgment. And the truth is that the more that you start to kind of follow those little whispers or those little hints of inspiration or intuition, the more you learn to trust that even if it feels really scary to do this one thing, the more you do it and the more it works out for you, the more you can prove to yourself that it's worth,
Hmm.
pursuing
Hmm.
it.
Hmm. Oh,
So
that's very, very good. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, so can we talk about what are spirit guides? What are they? Who are they? Is it, is it our angels? Is it like, is it past ancestors? What is it? I don't understand the difference.
yeah, and it's a really good question, and they really do often get confused with all of those things.
Hmm.
So the way that I describe spirit guides is that they are, and again, I always say I don't claim to know all of the secrets of the universe. This is purely based on my own experience,
Hmm.
and books I've read and teachers that I've worked with, as well. But I always stand to be corrected. I'm always a lifelong student as well. So I'm still learning new things about how all of this works.
Hmm.
Every day I learn something new. But at least from my current understanding, our spirit guides are light, source, universe, God energy, whatever it is that you believe in or subscribe to. But we as people, we can't really kind of conceive what it means to be talking to God or talking to energy.
Hmm.
Like that feels beyond us. That feels way
Hmm.
too big, too scary, too much, right? And so it's that one little piece of source energy that's directly assigned to you that you get to
Hmm.
work with directly. And their entire purpose is to help you get into alignment to become or to remain the truest, most authentic, beautiful version of yourself.
Hmm.
And so, you come down here into this incarnation, this time around here on earth with a decision or an agreement that you have certain things that you want to experience, accomplish, do, in this lifetime. And you kind of choose this guide before you incarnate. The two of you choose each
Hmm.
other. And they're there
Hmm.
to help you stay on that path. Because when we do incarnate on the planet, we choose amnesia. We choose to forget everything that's happened before, right? If we were to sit
Mm-hmm.
here and remember all of our previous lives,
Mm-hmm.
you could all be in the loony bin, because imagine remembering the trauma from all of your lives. Like
Mm-hmm.
you would, it's too much, right? So there's
Mm-hmm.
a reason we
Yeah.
choose amnesia. So because of that, though, we have to take some time in this life to kind of spend that time remembering who we really are and why we came here in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
And for the big picture of it, for most people, and I would say actually for everyone, the goal really is, number one, to get back to your true authentic self. And who is your true authentic self? It is recognizing that you are a piece of the master, that you are a soul having a human experience. You're here to remember that. You're here to find
Mm-hmm.
a way to kind of express that here on earth. And so your spirit guide is really there to help you, number one, remember that. And then number two, get on the path of expressing that for yourself and doing whatever it is you chose to do in order to share that message with others in some way.
Mm-hmm. That's
Yeah.
interesting. So we're all just kind of trying to figure it out, basically. We're all
A
trying to
little bit,
remember.
yes. And then, sorry, to answer your other question, I didn't answer. Are they your angels? Are they
Oh,
your
yeah, yeah.
ancestors? Sorry. No, they're not.
Okay.
We have angels, we have ancestors, and all of those things look out for us too, but they actually have different purposes. So
Mm-hmm.
we do have angels who look out for us. I'm not going to say that those don't sometimes get confused. Some people do have angels as spirit guides, but it's not often. Usually we have angels. Angels kind of sit on a different level, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
They're a little bit
Mm-hmm.
further up, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
They're a little bit more connected to, or I don't know, want to say more connected to source, but they're more of a source-like being than a spirit guide who's directly assigned
Mm-hmm.
to you. And
Mm-hmm.
your angels are kind of there for your overall well-being. They're there to sort of, people have experiences with angels where they say, I got into an experience where I was supposed to die and it feels like someone pulled me out, that kind of
Mm-hmm.
situation. That's angels. They're not going to step in unless they feel that your life is at stake,
Mm-hmm.
and that you're an untimely death is going to happen, right? Your
Mm-hmm.
spirit guide is going to manipulate and be kind of in your life and in your business all the time. An angel's only going to step in when absolutely necessary, and usually when your health is at risk in some way. So that's sort of an angel. And then we do have loved ones, of course,
Yes.
and they can look out for us. We can connect with them. They sit on a different realm, though, and their job is not to make sure that you get on your true path and purpose. They're kind of going through their own experience, right? They've just left one life and they're getting ready to go into the
Right.
next, reflecting on their life. They're sending love to their family. They're
Yeah.
doing lots of other things. It's not their job to be assigned to you and kind of move you along through your life. Can it
Mm-hmm.
happen? Sometimes, yes. Sometimes your loved one can pass away and become your spirit guide. But usually it's the case. The only time I really see that is if they were a really old soul and they were done incarnating anyway. So they've kind of
Mm-hmm.
become a spirit guide. Um,
Okay.
and it happens sometimes, but it's pretty rare.
That's interesting because I definitely do communicate with my ancestors. I know my dad comes to me a lot in dreams, and that's funny because you said something to me in our reading when you connected to my spirit guides. You said something about dreams. You said there's something about your dreams, and you need to do something with like the meaning of dreams. Well, I get my messages in dreams a lot of times from my dad. I've had dreams with my grandparents as well, where they're truly giving me messages. And I've had a really interesting experience with my dad's sister, where she gave me a message for a whole year, and that she wanted me to give a message to her daughter. And I was like, oh no, she's going to think I'm crazy, and it wasn't until and she started getting aggressive in my dreams. And when those dreams when you like wake up because you're going to fall, it was
Yeah.
kind of like that. It was like she was going to push me because she's like, you need to tell her today. And I was like, I woke up and I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to tell her. And then I did, and it was magical. And I'm so glad that I did. And I'm so sad that I waited that long. But yeah, it's so I do feel like I communicate with them, but it's just interesting. I've just always wondered if they're my spirit guides, if so this helps
Yeah.
helps me kind of understand a little bit better.
Yeah, and it doesn't mean that they can't give you guidance. They can. It's just not their main job. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like spirit guide is with you from before you're born all the way through your life. They're
Mhm.
always with you. Whereas your
Mhm.
loved one, sometimes they're kind of on their own journey, right? So they can be there
Mhm.
for you at times, that for
Okay.
sure they can offer their advice, but also remember that they have a different perspective. They still kind of hold on to some of their human
Mm.
biases.
Mhm.
And so they're possibly going to give you the advice that they would have given you when they were here embodied, right?
Mm,
Kind of with their own
interesting.
agenda in some way versus your
Mhm.
guide, it's going to be all light, all love,
Mhm.
completely objective.
That's thank you. Thank you for sharing that. That's very interesting. I had another question that I wanted to ask. Okay, so if you remember connecting to my spirit guide, so do we have the one spirit guide? Like, is that the one spirit guide? Do we only have one? Do we have several? And is this spirit guide with me all the time? Like, I feel like, like I want to connect with her the way you described her to me. I like try to picture her like, come on, I need your help here. you know? And I don't know if she's always around or if it's a different guide.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. So, at least the way I understand it is that we all have at least one main guide, right? So, there's a
Mhm.
guide who's like with you from right from the beginning all the way to the end. And then, at least from the way I see it, is sometimes if we're walking through a specific lesson or there's a new kind of level that we're going through, sometimes that main guide will call in other guides to kind of help you work through a specific
Mm,
challenge. And so
mm,
you can have hundreds of guides in your life. I know
mm,
I have a couple of clients that it's like every time I connect with them, there's a different guide who comes through. And
mhm,
it's really because, they're up leveling so quickly, right? There's so
mhm,
much they're needing to learn. Their main guide's always there. Their main guide's always sitting in the background. I can still connect with them, but that's not who's talking always.
mhm,
So yes, we all have at least one, but then there are usually many more that come in as needed, if that makes sense.
mm, mhm.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Would you happen to remember when you connected with mine? Do you remember that session at all? If that was my main guide? And I know that's hard because, I'm sure you see hundreds of people, so I know it's a big ask.
Yeah, I was gonna say, no, I'm sorry. I don't
It's okay.
exactly remember who your guide
That's
is. Yeah,
okay.
as you said, I do channel a lot of people at once, but also the way it kind of works is that in the moment when I'm channeling, as soon as we kind of sign off everything that we've spoken about, like it's a good thing we record the sessions because the I no
Yeah.
longer have access to the information anymore.
Wow. Yeah, that I can understand that for sure.
So we start channeling again, and it usually comes all right back once
Mhm,
open it up again and open up the channel again, and then I'm like,
mhm.
"Oh, this is everything we talked about last time." So,
Okay.
it can come through again, but not sort of in
Yeah.
conversation necessarily.
Oh, okay. No, no, totally. I get it. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so what does then a typical session look like with you? And like I know what it is because I've had that experience, but like for the listeners, can you just explain a little bit about what a session would look like? Or and what processes or rituals do you follow? Do you have to do anything to prepare for them?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And I love that you're asking about preparation. So there's a couple of things that I do. I tend to kind of include the preparation into the session itself, because I find that the individual in front of me benefits from all of the things I'm doing to call the guides in. So when you do a session with me, as you know, we always start with a guided meditation, and I'm doing something to help get us both out of our
Mhm,
heads into our bodies so that I can open up the channel, but also so that both of us aren't feeling all of the extra energy. Sometimes there's a lot of excitement that comes in before you have a session.
mhm,
The day of, you can start to feel the guides around you. Their presence is a little bit more there. And a lot of people come in feeling very anxious or very overexcited, right? They feel that energy buzzing around them. So I find it's really helpful for us to both get really centered and grounded
mhm,
to start. The other reason that I do it, though, is that the spirit guides usually love to use this as an opportunity to offer you some healing energy. And so
mhm,
I'm not planning that meditation ahead of time. I'm actually channeling it directly from their guide
mhm.
in that moment. So it's different
Beautiful.
for every person, which is really
Mhm.
fun for me.
Oh,
We
that's
always go on
beautiful.
we end up in some beautiful place in nature, and it's always kind of what is going to be most resonate most for that person, right? Whatever feels most loving, most beautiful, most relaxing for them. And so we end up in some beautiful, nature scenes, which is
Mm, mhm,
amazing. And then the spirit guides kind of send some healing energy through their body and in during the meditation, and I kind of have you visualize that and have you feel that in your body, what that feels like, right? Feeling that your cells are vibrating, feeling the light going
Mm.
through your body. And then from there, I call in the spirit guides. I ask them to come into the room. I ask them to join. And I always remind people that it doesn't mean they're actually physically coming in the space the way, a person would walk in, but that we're picking up the phone line, we're opening the channel. And I also make sure to call in for protection. And I do this, I tell people because spirit guides are very excited to be connecting with you.
Mhm.
Um, and so, it's just a reminder for them to come in gently, to come in calmly,
Mm.
so that we don't get overwhelmed, being the
Mm.
embodied ones. We can feel the extra energy when they come in sometimes. But if I
Mm.
ask for protection, we don't have to feel that intense, influx
Mm.
of energy when they come. Yeah, and then a session with me, really, it a lot of it kind of is directed by what the individual in front of me needs most. So I always start with what it is that their spirit guide feels they most need to hear right now. Everybody comes prepared with questions, and I encourage those questions, but we always start with, what does your guide feel you need to know, not what you want to know?
Mm.
And we
Mhm.
always start from there. And sometimes the guides, they'll tell you, they usually tell you the overarching theme of where you're at right now in your life. What is the lesson, or I guess the lesson or the experience that you're walking through right now? What's the overarching theme for your life right now? And we really go into that. What do you need? What do you need in this moment? What does your body
Mhm.
need? Sometimes it looks like health related things.
Mm.
And sometimes it looks like mental health related things, and, ways for personal self care. It can really be anything that they're really needing. Maybe they're going through a particularly rough time. And so they're offering how they need to be soothing themselves and healing themselves. So there's a lot about that. Spirit guides, especially your main guides, are really concerned about your general well being, your spiritual well-being, and making sure that you're feeling whole and aligned to, at most, no matter the circumstances that you're walking through. Yeah, and then from there, I allow the client to kind of ask the questions, and this is the fun part. You can ask anything
Mhm.
you want. Once you connect
Mhm.
to that energy, you can connect to everything: your past, your present, your future, your relationships, your business. We can talk about, lately a lot of moms have been asking me, like, how about my kids? And we can call in the spirit guides of their kids and figure out how best to support them.
Oh,
We can talk
that's
about
beautiful.
past lives, right? What are the things that you've been through? Most
Mhm.
people come to me because they want to know, what's my path and what's my purpose? Why am I here? What am I
Mm.
meant to be doing in this life? And usually
Mhm.
we'll take a good amount of time and explore that. Usually there's a
Mhm.
past life that contributes to unfinished business in this
Mhm.
life. So we'll explore that very deeply, which you and I did.
Yes. Mhm.
Um, yeah, and it's just really beautiful, and we kinda just go from there. And, that's usually what a session looks like. Some people get really specific, depends how long we've been working together.
Right.
Sometimes we tap
Right.
your path and your purpose, and then they start coming to me of like, "Okay, help me with this business deal," you know?
Yeah. That's awesome. That
What
that
do I do
is
with this colleague or whatever? So it can really be anything once you tap
yeah.
in, you have access to it all.
That is amazing. I know that my session with you was absolutely amazing, and I shared a portion of that, as you know, on the podcast. So I'll link to that. But and it was just the portion as it related to the podcast specifically, which was also mind blowing that she was telling me exactly what to do and what to share on my podcast. So that was really cool. But yeah, I can see how somebody can continue working with you really forever, to just kind of continue gaining guidance. So that's really cool. Um, I did have a question. Okay, so for example, like in our session, I have the recording of our session and I have that meditation recording. Does it make sense to like listen to that again to be able to like reconnect again to the spirit guides and use that meditation as my, you know, I don't know, whatever my connection or my link or to get into that space?
100%. And that's one of the reasons we hit record before we start that
Yeah.
meditation. Most of my clients will go back and reuse that meditation as their way of connecting to their guides.
Oh my
It's
gosh.
like, it's the meditation that is geared directly to you. It's
Yeah.
from your guide themselves. So why
Oh,
wouldn't? Why not?
oh, that is so beautiful. It hadn't even occurred to me until you were saying this, it was like Perfect. I'm gonna use that. Thank you so much. Oh, that's
Yeah, I
beautiful.
love that. I feel like I should
So
suggest that to my clients. I know some of them just do it on their own, but I feel like I should mention that. Like, use this meditation.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, if because it
Yeah.
hadn't occurred to me until you we were talking here, and I was like, oh my gosh, yes, the meditation, it was beautiful. So thank you for that. And I have a few questions written down, but I see that you've already answered them with with our conversation. What most people come to you for. Okay, so there's a lot of skepticism, right, around the field of spiritual mediums. What do you say to skeptics, and how do you navigate those challenging conversations?
Yeah. So it's not my job to convince other people to believe, to believe in something they don't want to believe in.
Hmm.
And so I never kind of take that on, if that makes sense. If they're uncomfortable by it, then
Hmm.
I don't necessarily try to engage.
Hmm.
And even to the point where if somebody was forced to come and see me against their own will, which happens sometimes, sometimes a wife will drag their husband along. If
Hmm.
somebody's really not open to it and they're not
Hmm.
into it, number one, it's going to be immensely difficult for me to channel for you because, you've shut that down and I don't
Hmm.
really have your permission to be doing so. Um,
Right.
and in those cases, sometimes I will deny, working with them.
Hmm.
And so I'm not here to kind of prove the skeptics wrong.
Hmm. Hmm.
If you're
Yeah.
wanting and you're open to, once in a while, it's kind of fun to do that. I'm not going to
Hmm.
lie on the ego side of things. Like, yes, sometimes it's really fun to do that and, prove them wrong and be like, yeah, that
Hmm.
thing I said came true or whatever.
Hmm.
But I don't need that validation necessarily.
Hmm. Yeah,
um, so for me, and from what I understand, the people who come in as a skeptic
I'm
usually
sorry.
it,
There is a mosquito here.
oh no,
It's like literally in my
I can
space.
see it. It's like flying in the screen.
I'm so sorry.
That's
Okay.
okay. That can be a big distraction. We should look it up. It's probably a sign of something.
I know, I know. I should look it
As
up.
we're talking about annoying skeptics,
Yes, seriously, the mosquito. Perfect. It was like perfect timing.
That's
I'm
very
sorry
fun.
I interrupted you.
No, that's okay. I was gonna say, usually if they're skeptical, it's because they're afraid or they don't know,
Mhm.
right? They don't
Mhm.
understand it or they're afraid of it. And that's usually the case is that there's fear there, in which case I know that eventually they'll come around, maybe not
Mhm.
in this life, but eventually.
Yeah. Yeah,
uh, so,
that's how I kind of feel about it when because I've channeled I've met with other spiritual mediums to like connect with my dad specifically.
mhm.
And so I shared the messages that he had, our conversation with my siblings, and of course they weren't very open to it. So I'm like, okay, you know what, that's all right. Like, I know what kind of relationship I have with my dad, and I know these messages are for us. So it's all
Yeah.
right. I just kind of leave it
And
alone.
that it can be confronting for them if this is something they don't feel comfortable with, right? Or scary. They,
Hmm.
then and you're and we start to kind of bring those things up, it's like it brings up an emotion that they're not willing to
Hmm.
and they're not
Hmm.
ready to go there. And so we're kind of saying, like, come swim in the deep end with me, and they don't quite know how to swim yet,
Hmm.
it's asking
Hmm.
too much.
Hmm. Yeah, no, no, I
So,
totally get that.
yeah.
Okay. So you've already kind of shared about how people can begin to like connect with their own spirit guides. Um,
Did I? We can go a little deeper in
let's
that.
go deeper then. Let's go deeper
Yeah.
because we had talked about like the meditations, but go for it. Yes, if there's more to know, let's do it.
On how to connect with your, because this is, I love talking about this. We
Okay, yeah, let's do
go
it.
forever,
Yes.
but there's a couple of things you can do if you want to just start, just to dip your toe in the water and start to connect
Hmm.
with your guides. Number one, listen to your body, right? That is the lowest hanging fruit of connecting to your intuition. That idea of having a gut feeling is not fake. If you have a gut
Hmm.
feeling, lean into that. If something gives you butterflies, if something gives you chills, if something makes you feel this doesn't feel right in my body, right? That's your spirit guide connecting with you. That's your higher self connecting with you. Your soul is talking to you all day long. Listen to it.
Hmm.
Pay attention.
Mm.
So always,
Okay.
always start there. But then you can use that to your advantage. You can ask your body to show you and your spirit guides to send physical sensations through your body to get yes or no
Oh
answers.
my gosh.
So you can go into, and I always say you have to start by getting grounded and connected first. So maybe you want to go for a walk, maybe you want to do some breath work, maybe you want to do a meditation first, something that's going to get you out of your head and into your body and not thinking about what's for dinner tonight, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so you always do that first, but then you have to speak to your spirit guides out loud. And so then you would say to them out loud, spirits of the light, are you here with me? Can you
Oh,
connect with me?
really?
I'm trying to connect with you, right? Connect with them. They want a relationship as much as you do, but they can't read our minds, at least not at first. You do have to speak to them out loud. And so
Interesting.
you can then ask them to send you a physical sensation in your body. Say, show me what yes feels like in my body. And then trust the first sensation that comes to mind, right? Or that comes up. For some people, maybe that's full body chills. Maybe it feels like your heart opening. Maybe it feels like pressure on your third eye or tingling down your spine, right? It could be so many different sensations.
Wow.
And
Mm-hmm.
once you get it, tell them you've gotten the sensation. Thank you. I feel you. Right. And
Wow.
then you ask them, show me what no feels like. What does no feel like in my body? And with no, it can be a totally different sensation, or you can feel the yes sensation disappear.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So it could be one or the other. Then you can go ahead and ask your spirit guide out loud, of course, a yes or no question, right? Should
Mm-hmm.
I go to this party tonight? Should I tell my sister that thing I've been wanting to tell her? Whatever it is, something that can be answered with yes or no. And then
Mm-hmm.
trust the first sensation that comes up. Does the yes sensation pop up, or does the no
Mm-hmm.
sensation pop up? And then you have
Wow.
the answer right from your guides right there.
Oh
In the
my
moment.
gosh, that is amazing. I love that. I
Yeah.
love that. Okay, quick question. So a lot of times I use like a pendulum to ask
Mhm.
yes or no questions when I'm like I really need guidance. Do you have any idea who we're connecting to or what we're connecting to when we use a pendulum? Are we just connecting to our own energy, to our higher soul, to a spirit guide? Do you have any idea on that?
Yeah, so pendulums are great tools. They really are. And I always say I can't tell you exactly who you're connecting to. My guess would be it's either your higher self, so your actual soul, or your guide. And
Mhm.
so I don't think that they're in either way, they both have your best interests at heart. So there's
Mhm.
definitely there's nothing wrong with using them. They're a
Mhm.
great tool. The same way as, it's great to we can start by using not what are those cards called?
Oh, tarot cards?
Tarot cards, no. Yes, tarot cards as well, but there's like the angel cards or the just the
Oh.
card decks that people have,
Mhm.
where you just pick them out and they give you
Ye
messages.
Oh, yes, yes, yes. Yeah,
Uh,
the decks, I don't know what they're called, but they're not really tarot cards, but
they're not
there's like a
tarot.
bunch of them, right?
Yeah,
There's like
yeah,
a bunch
those
of decks
decks,
out there.
yeah, there's like a bunch of card decks, so those are all great tools. I just say that I want to encourage people to go deeper than that, because those types of things then become a crutch. You feel like you
Mm.
can't go deeper than that. You can only trust what the card says.
Mm,
And
mhm.
then sometimes there could be way more. If you really start to build this relationship with your guide and start to have conversations with them, you're going to
Mm,
get answers that are much more tailored to
yeah,
you. Right? It would be
yeah.
so nice to get more than just a yes or a no from a pendulum that can
Yes, because
be.
sometimes it takes a long time for me to get all my answers when I'm trying to use a yes or no with my
Yeah,
pendulum. I'm like,
yeah.
it's
So
like, okay,
that's
let me
when,
ask this now.
right,
Yeah.
and that's when automatic writing is such a great tool, right? That's
Yeah.
when you can ask your guides, for those of you who don't know what that is, right? You're asking your guides to channel through you as you write, and usually it'll start by maybe writing a question at the top of a page, or you just start writing, right? And
Mhm.
you're asking your guides to channel messages through you. So you start writing, and it's kind of stream of consciousness, whatever comes to mind. And so at first, yes, it'll feel like your own thoughts, but you'll notice eventually that it picks up, right? The pace picks up. Sometimes the tone changes. Usually, I know when I'm doing automatic writing, it'll go from me saying, I don't know what to do about this, I'm not sure, to suddenly, someone picking up the pen and going, you need to do this. You need this, you blah, blah, blah. And so it's like my guide writing to me, writing a letter to me, talking to me. Usually it happens so fast, my hand can barely keep up with how quickly the energy is coming through. It's so sloppy, I can barely read it by the end.
Yeah, okay, and, what does your hand feel like? Does it because as part of when we did my, session, my guy told me that I needed to be doing automatic writing. with other people. And so I did one yesterday with a client, and my hand started just, it was so weird. My hand just felt like it wasn't even mine. And it felt like I could barely read my writing. In fact, I have it right here, right in front of me. I can barely read my writing. And but it just felt like it almost felt like sore, it just was this weird, like it wasn't mine. I don't know. What sensation do you get on your hand?
Yeah, similar to that. It feels like, it almost feels like somebody placed their hand over yours and they're like writing
Mm,
for you. And it's almost like you're
mm.
trying to write fast enough, but it's like not fast enough. So yeah, it can
Right.
be a little sore because you're just like, oh my God, I can't quite get the the message
Yeah.
written as fast as the energy's coming through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it felt like. And then I stopped writing and I felt like there was still more,
Yeah.
and I was like, but I think I got in my head at that point and I just didn't know what to write. And then it picked up again for a little bit. And yeah,
Mhm.
that was a weird experience, but that was something that you recommended that I hadn't really ever heard of. So I just tried it. I just did it. I just started doing it. So,
And I would argue that many books have been written that way.
oh, yes, that's what I
Right.
hear people. I channeled this, or I did it in a weekend or whatever. I'm like, wow, that would be amazing. I would love to write a book that was
Not even
channeled.
them, right? It's not like you have to think it through, it just comes to you, right? It just
Hmm.
comes through you, and so all you are is then the tool for the guide to
Hmm.
send the
Hmm.
message,
Oh,
right?
that's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, that's awesome.
Mhm.
Okay. So now you said that we have and I think that I'm probably answering my own question in my head. We have the ability to connect to our own spirit guides. Like we all have that ability within us. Do we all also have the ability to connect to other people's spirit guides?
Yes, absolutely.
Hmm.
I actually would say it's easier to connect to somebody else's guides than your own.
Really?
And to get messages for somebody else than for yourself
Oh,
because
really?
you don't have as much invested in the outcome. So it's a little
Hmm.
bit easier to be more objective and not guess or kind of try to manipulate the answer because you don't know what would be most aligned for them.
Hmm.
Right.
Hmm.
So versus like, let's say for me, if I wanted, there's an answer that I'm asking or a question I'm asking my guides and I know the answer that I want, right?
Hmm.
I'm going to
Hmm.
question every time the answer comes through that doesn't sound like the answer I want.
Uh-huh. Yes.
I'm
Yes.
not going to trust it. It's not what I want. If it's for somebody else, I don't know all of the circumstances. It's so much easier to hear the message so much more clearly
Hmm.
because I have no skin in the game.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Totally. So how can we better attune ourselves on a daily basis to receive these messages from our spirit guide? And we may have already covered this, and if we did, then just let me know, and I can go on to the next question.
No, I would say it's really just a matter of trust.
Hmm.
You people think that it's this thing that they have to get to, that it's like I have to grow my intuition, I have to build my intuition. That's not the case. Your intuition is there. It's your birthright. You were born with it. You've always had it. All you have to do is remember it and trust that it's there. And
Hmm.
so I want you to start by going in with the belief that your intuition is there and you just have to trust it. And so
Hmm.
more a matter of recognizing it as it comes through. Everybody is getting intuitive downloads all day long. Most of us
Hmm.
are ignoring those intuitive downloads.
Hmm.
So now the question is every time I get one, can I trust that I didn't just imagine that I didn't make it up? Can I actually lean into that thing that I heard at the back
Hmm.
of my head, that sensation I got in my body, that gut feeling that I
Hmm.
had? If I start leaning into those little things instead of ignoring them every time and start trusting those things, then the messages get louder and clearer every time.
Hmm. Hmm. Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you. Um, well, I think that wraps things up for me, at least for today.
Yeah.
Before we wrap it up, how can people work with you?
Yeah. Oh, I very easily. They can find me on my website. If
Mhm.
they want to have a session with me. My website is jessicarachel.co. So there's no
Mhm.
N at the end,
Mhm.
.co. You can also find me over on Instagram. I'm sometimes giving some information there on how to
Mhm.
connect your intuition. So
Oh,
that's
awesome.
at I am Jessica Rachel.
Mhm.
Um, yeah. And so
And we'll get those linked in the show notes as well. But aside from sessions, you do other things, right? Like you mentioned you were teaching people how to connect to the spirit guides. You have other courses or memberships,
Yes.
or
So
what is it?
I have an 8-week program that I run every couple of months. And that is really like a deep dive in how to connect your intuition, so that you come out of it not only being able to channel for yourself, but being able to channel for others. Really the goal of that, and people usually come into this program when they go, this is what I want to do with my life. I really want to be connecting deeply. I want to be helping others with it. And this is sort of the, become a become a spiritual medium 101 kind of a course.
Wow.
It's very life changing. It's really beautiful, and almost everyone who takes that program ends up quitting their job and doing this full time, which is so amazing.
That
So
is amazing.
beautiful.
That is so awesome. Something to think about.
Think about for
I
sure. But
I
it's so beautiful. I love teaching that program.
Oh, that sounds amazing. That sounds like something I can incorporate into what I'm starting to do as well.
Yeah,
So
and if
thank
any of
you.
your listeners are interested, that's my Intuitive Power Masterclass. That's You can find all of the information on my website about
Okay,
that.
perfect.
Get started.
Oh, awesome. Thank you so much. This has been amazing. Okay, I'd like to ask one more question of all my guests. What is
Mhm.
one thing you're loving right now? What a product, an app, a book, like something you've been like obsessing over this week that you just love, you want to share with people?
Um, this is probably completely unrelated, but a parenting book that I've been reading lately.
Yes, sure. And that's what I love about this, like something completely unrelated. I love it. What
Yeah.
is the book?
So it's called Simplicity Parenting. I believe the author is John Kim Payne or something,
Okay.
Pay.
Okay.
He's a little bit more kind of Waldorf inspired. And so it's a lot about kind of peeling back, all of the busyness that we have and all of the clutter and all of the things, and just bringing everything down to the simplest, bare bones, and
Oh,
really creating kind of these rituals, routines, consistency, and space for the
yeah.
kids so that they can just,
Oh,
and it's just such an inspiring book, and I'm loving every minute of it. So,
that sounds amazing. I will link that in the show notes as well. I'm sure a lot of parents would love to read that. And is that really for like parents with smaller kids, you think?
no, it goes through all ages. It's really just about kind of creating, peeling back the busyness so that you can cultivate connection,
Hmm.
and, create space as a family. And so, no,
Hmm.
it's not specific to small children.
Okay, awesome. Well,
Yeah.
because my children are adults, so that's why I ask. But
Yeah.
I'm always trying to, especially now that they're so busy with their lives, it's like, like I miss that. Sometimes I'm like, I should have had more children,
Yeah.
so I
Yeah.
can have them here with me.
And that's what I love about it. It's almost like creating routine. But even if your kids are out of the house, then, if every Friday night you have dinner,
Yeah,
together, and it's like,
yeah.
come over, come have dinner, and that's expected, that creates.
Yeah, yes, and I love that, and I love the idea of that. And my son, my older son lives in Seattle, and my younger son, he's 21 and he lives with me. But I miss having like the three of us so much together for dinner. I just started. We just did our third one. We do Zoom dinners every Wednesday.
I
And I
love that. Oh my
I
god,
could
that's
cry
so
because I
sweet.
feel like it's so like, okay, like this is the closest I can get, right now. And so I've really been enjoying it. Like I could cry. It's just,
Gosh,
I
I'm
love
taking
that.
that, like, note. I'm noting
Yeah.
that for when my kids are older.
Yes, it's like, what can I do? Like, how can I make this happen? And I'm like, duh, it's like we
Yeah.
did it during COVID. So, to connect with our family. So, like, okay, like this is what we're gonna do. And I love it. We get our dinners ready and then we like meet up to have our dinner together. So yeah.
So beautiful, and I'm sure
Yeah.
that even if they don't say it, I'm sure they look forward to
I
that.
I hope so. I hope they remember these things, when I die. She used to make us sit and have dinner on the laptop.
And if not, you'll talk to them in their dreams.
Yes, I will make sure they remember.
Exactly.
And I tell them this all the time. I will come back and talk to you, so you will know.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, Jessica, Rachel, thank you so much again for giving me your time. I really, really appreciate it, and I will tag you everywhere and put all your info in the show notes so people can reach you and have the beautiful privilege that I had to work with you and get messages from my spirit guides. I thank you very much for your wonderful gift and for sharing that with all of us.
Thank you so much. This has been such a treat, and it's always so fun to connect with you. And yeah, I look forward to connecting more soon.
Yes, yes, we will. Thank you.